Muted.
To the audience as a whole. Welcome to tonight's webinar presentation on emergency communication. Tonight's presenter will be Paul Muhammad, who works hard in his community as well as others at saving the lives of our people for the last 20 years plus. He has various skills and affiliations as an electronic engineer, multimedia specialist, and trained in emergency management under an international emergency manager by the name of Sister Aurelia Muhammad. He is a member of various organizations and groups, and he is a longtime member of the Nation of Islam. He is a volunteer for Emergency Radio Emergency Service, also known as ARES, and Amateur Radio Relay League, also known as ARRL, as well as a storm spotter through Skywarn and the National Weather Service. He is a member of a CERT team called DICER in St. Louis, CERT standing for Community Emergency Response Team, and served as an emergency medical technician for the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March on 10/10/15, and was able to use his emergency management and response skills during the Ferguson crisis. Again, I am Karima Muhammad, and I am the wife of Brother Paul. I am also trained in emergency management and response. I am a member of DICER and the St. Louis CERT team, as well as a volunteer Skywarn storm spotter. I also had the honor and privilege of serving as an EMT with DICER for the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. My professional background is corporate finance, and I'm a holistic living advocate. Without further ado, let us please give Brother Paul our undivided attention. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, Sister Kalima. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum to everyone, which means peace be unto you. I'd like to welcome you once again tonight to our emergency communications call. We're going to jump right in. I have a nice presentation for everyone. I want to start with talking about what our goal is. Our goal is to bring more awareness to how important communication is as it relates to your and my survival, to ultimately create networks across the nation to help create a zero-casualty initiative in the event of emergency. In other words, to save lives. We want to make a zero-casualty initiative a reality. You know, there are many nations across the country and across the world, and one of them in particular is Cuba. And Cuba has a zero-casualty initiative where they have one of the most viable and robust disaster systems in place. So they are definitely a nation that we can model ourselves after. Moving right along, we want to talk about tactical intelligence and strategic intelligence just for a moment. Strategic intelligence is knowing what to do. See, oftentimes we know what to do, but we don't know how to do it. What I want us to begin to do is get in the mindset of learning how to do things, qualifying ourselves for positions that are awaiting us. This is something we really have to get practical about, because a lot of times we're sitting in meetings, we're sitting in these status meetings, we're sitting in these informational meetings, but nobody is really showing us how to do things. Well, we want to end that cycle and place ourselves into how to do mentality. And we want to have a tactical, what I call tactical intelligence, which is actionable intelligence for dynamic events dealing with the here and now. So we want to be present to the here and now of what's going on so that we can respond properly. Time dictates our agenda based on the knowledge of the time. If you don't understand the time, then you can't apply what needs to be applied in that time frame. So many of us are in time, but we are not on time. According to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, time dictates our agenda based on our knowledge of the time. So I want to take a moment to talk about my inspiration for doing this webinar tonight and getting into the emergency management and communication in general. It started mostly in Ferguson. You know, when I was out in Ferguson, I made an observation. You know, our people were emotional. They were charged up because they felt pain. Anytime a people have pain and feel pain, they feel charged up and they want to respond emotionally. I was always taught by the old folks to fight ignorance with intelligence. So while I was out there many nights in Ferguson, I took a step back in a sense so that I can observe and make intelligent moves. One thing I observed was the cell phone stopped working. People could not communicate. Not because the cell phone system went down per se, but when you got that many people trying to get cell phone traffic out, it will jam the cell phone system all in and of itself. But also, law enforcement was also jamming the cell phones because people were posting videos of them on Facebook, social media, and things like that. So it prompted me to want to apply my intelligence and get into some tactical operations, because our elderly people at that time during the unrest in Ferguson couldn't get to their dialysis. Our children couldn't get back and forth to school because of the roadblocks. So we really need to start rethinking this, what we are doing, before we run out emotionally and get ourselves killed. Moving right along, I want to talk about the 7 pillars for survival, but in particular, of the 7 pillars is communication. For those who are listening to my voice, anytime you place your mind in the thought of, I'm going to prepare for a disaster, I'm going to prepare for an emergency or a calamity, I want you to put in mind these 7 pillars for survival. The first one being personal health and safety. The next one being shelter, water, fire, energy, food, tools, and communication. If you're preparing a bug-out bag, for instance, make sure it includes these 7 pillars of survival. If you're preparing a get-home bag, a bag that's just going to get you home, make sure it includes these 7 pillars for survival. If you have what's called an everyday bag, a bag that you carry with you no matter where you go, you keep it on your person, make sure it has the 7 pillars of survival. If you haven't already done this, I want everybody to make sure you take out a pen and pad, because the stuff we're going to share with you tonight is very, very critical. And I'll make this PowerPoint presentation available to you also. So in all your preparedness, make sure you include the 7 pillars for survival. Next slide. All right. What is an emergency? What is a disaster? An emergency is a sudden, urgent, usually unexpected occurrence or occasion requiring immediate action. A state, especially of need for help or relief, created by some unexpected event. Disasters can be natural, technological, or intentional. Those natural disasters include earthquakes, wildfires, floods, extreme heat, hurricanes, landslides, thunderstorms, tornadoes, tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, winter storms, technological disasters, or hazardous material spills, a nuclear power plant accident. Those intentional disasters are terrorism, using a chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and or explosive weapons. Next slide. The key elements of a disaster are, regardless of the event, disasters have several key elements in common. They are relatively unexpected, with little or no warning. You don't get a warning off time or an opportunity to prepare. Available personnel and emergency services may be overwhelmed initially by demand for services. Lives, health, and environment can be endangered. Because I want us to understand that our enemies, our open enemies, the time when they attack us, they're not concerned with riots, brothers and sisters. They're not concerned with unrest. What they are concerned with is earthquakes. What they are concerned with is torrential rain and snowstorms, because that's when the time when the beast shows you that he is a beast. When you're standing on your rooftop and the flood waters reach the top of your roof, that's when that demon shows you that he's a demon, when you need him the most, after you fought him in the streets, protesting and throwing rocks at him and doing all manner of things out of emotion. But you haven't prepared for a disaster. But you haven't prepared for the tsunami, the earthquake, and the blackouts. So then, when you got your hand out, if you don't prepare, then they'll leave you standing on the rooftop. With that being said, I want to introduce a good sister of mine before we move forward. Sister Landra Muhammad, she's been on the case of disaster preparedness for quite some time. You'll see her on Facebook and other social media outlets. Sister Landra Muhammad is a citizen of the Nation of Islam and has been for over 20 years. She is the author of 4 books, including Weathering the Storm, Disaster Preparedness, How to Survive the Fall of America. She's a member of the Bergen County, New Jersey CERT team, which stands for Community Emergency Response Program. Sister Landra is a frequent lecturer in the subject of food storage. Additionally, she focuses her social media efforts on disaster preparedness with an emphasis on teaching people of color. Make sure to follow her on Twitter and Facebook. With that being said, I hope Sister Landra can hear my voice, and I hope she's ready to go. Sister Landra, go ahead and take over from here. So y'all give a rousing round of applause to our sister. Her mic is not on? Okay.
Oh, you can hear me.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I unmuted.
Praise be to Allah. You know, I actually thought about this webinar all day long, and I think today I'm a student. You know, my specialty is food storage. Even though I try to study all facets of disaster preparedness, in actuality, food storage and emergency cooking is my specialty. So in terms of communication, I, like the others that are online right now, I'm a student. So with that, I would just suggest to everyone that, being that, in my opinion, Brother Paul, at this point, in terms of the nation, is the go-to person. He is the one that is studying, from what I have seen, most diligently in terms of communication. So we need to have our, as when I'm in my classroom, our listening ears open, and we should be taking notes at this point. Next to food storage, I believe that communication is absolutely the next critical thing. This may seem unrelated, but it actually is. I was doing a study on Black Wall Street, and right before the attacks started, what the Caucasians did was block off the black people in the community. They called it Little Africa. And their purpose of doing that was to prevent them from being able to communicate with others outside of their particular area. So just like Brother Paul was talking about, you know, in Ferguson, up-to-date modern times, you know, the police and whomever being able to stop your level of communications, this is not something new, because it happened in Tulsa also. So if there's a history of this happening, we need to be ahead of time and have all gamuts and all facets of communications at our disposal. So what we're going to learn this evening, inshallah, will help us to be better prepared outside of our landline phones, outside of our cell phones, because they can be jammed, they can be stopped. But with what Brother Paul is teaching in regards to a higher level of communications, this is where we need to be going right now. So that's really all I had to say. Thank you so much, Brother Paul, for giving me the opportunity to say a few words. And like I said, I'm a student tonight, brother. I've got my notebook and paper right here. So please continue. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. All praises due to Allah. Thank you, sister, for coming on and sharing your spirit with us. We're thankful to Allah for this moment in time, and we're thankful for His servant, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, for inspiring us to love our people. And a lot of us have been at this for a mighty long time in our communities, trying to warn our people about what's coming. And as you can see, there are more and more calamities that are befalling us. And so we can't neglect preparedness. Don't say someone else is going to do it for you, or my boyfriend is going to do it, or my husband is going to do it. Your lives are at stake. My life is at stake. My children's lives are at stake. And the blood is on your hands if you don't prepare your family. So tonight, this presentation, part of it is about getting the blood off my hands. Because anytime God inspires you to do something or give you some knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, it's your duty to give it to the people. The duty of those who know is to teach those who don't know. So that's why we're here tonight. And so on this particular slide, for those who can see online, we have, I want you to put in your notes something called a disaster alert map. A disaster alert map. If you type in the disaster alert map on Google, what happens is you'll find an interactive map. When it comes to communication, brothers and sisters, one of the things you got to know what's going on around the world. Well, this disaster alert map gives you the disasters happening right now in real time. And on this particular map, I'm zooming in on a map of the United States so we can see what kind of disasters are going on right now as we speak. This is an important tool that you can put in your toolbox, and there's also an app. If you go in the Apple store, if you go in the Android store, you have what's called a disaster alert map. And oftentimes, the news don't report all the disasters, just so everyone knows. The news don't report everything. But these maps, these disaster alert maps are in real time, and they show you what's going on right now. And for those who can see the screen, you will see in California, the little squiggly lines, they stand for earthquakes. Right now, in the state of California, let's see how many earthquakes are going on right now. And they may be small earthquakes, but however, those small ones lead to big ones. You have one. If you click on it, it'll tell you the magnitude of the earthquake, 2.4 magnitude earthquake. Let's see, how many more you have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You have about 11 earthquakes going on in California as we speak. Oklahoma has 3 earthquakes going on as we speak. Missouri, in the boot hill of Missouri, we have a 2.5 earthquake going on as we speak. Also, there's some biological over in Pennsylvania. You have some environmental pollution. Down in Florida, as we speak, you have some environmental pollution. So these, let's see, in Texas, you have a flood going on. So here's a real-time map. Someone asked, what does the yellow dots mean? Well, those yellow dots are different types of disasters. Like in Colorado, they have a hazmat situation going on. If you click on the yellow icon, it'll zoom in on it and give you the time, and give even some more details about it. Let's see what else. What does it say about this? There's a lot of little features here that you can click on, and it'll give you extra information. Out in the ocean, there's a tropical storm going on a particular island. So I'm not going to talk about this map for too long. I just wanted to give you this tool that was given to me by Sister Aurelia Muhammad as she was training us in emergency management. Kareem said he don't see the map. Does everyone see the map? Respond in the box if you see the map. I want to make sure everybody can see it. Okay, most people see it. Okay. Yeah, you might have a slow connection, Brother Kareem. So put this in your toolbox. I want you to walk away with some stuff in your preparedness toolbox, all right? And I will be sharing, everyone who attended this call tonight, I'll be putting a link to those books that I promised to you all, before the night is over with, all right? So, moving right along. Let's get back to our PowerPoint. What next? All right. Here's some EmComm. By the way, EmComm stands for Emergency Communication in the disaster preparedness world. Ham radio operators have come to the rescue in many disasters. Radio communication has proven to be the most robust form of communication and has saved many, many lives, brothers and sisters. The earthquakes in Hawaii in 2006, it was the ham operators that provided emergency communications during these events. The floods in northeastern states, the Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Wilma, Rita, the wildfires in Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Hurricane Charlie, Francis, Ivan, and John, tsunami in Asia, the earthquake in Central California. I'm going to pull up another quick little PowerPoint that I found to be interesting. It was an earthquake that happened in Sichuan, China. I believe this was in China.
Oh yeah, because I've been trying to call in.
Okay, I got you on this, brother Shafiq. I want to show you all this the situation that happened in Sichuan, China. It was a magnitude 8.0 earthquake that hit China's Sichuan area. 69,180 people died, and 374,008 people were injured in this disaster. This was June 19, 2008. 80 to 90% of the houses were crashed. That's a whole lot for a disaster. The central government responded quickly. The prime minister took off from Beijing within 2 hours after the quake, heading for Chengdu. The army rescue forces had to rush into the epicenter area by foot due to the road cut off. The radio operators around Chengdu area set up their gears at the earliest time. All other communication means failed in the center area, and one amateur repeater was set up at 13th of May morning to pass command for the government. What a repeater is like an antenna tower that's set up to pass communications over a longer distance. We'll get into some of that later of what those repeaters are useful for. Some of the repeaters were set up at 100 kilometers up in the air. See, we have to get intelligent about this, brothers and sisters. We can't sit on our hands and act like somebody else is going to do it for us. No one, Red Cross and a lot of these other agencies, guess what? They already have said they're not coming to you. They said, we're not coming to the black community in particular. If these people don't get prepared, then we will die. So it's on us. We have to take responsibility for our own lives. We can't be like the one waiting on the rooftop on somebody to do for us that which we can do for our own selves. All right? So moving right along through this particular. The radio amateurs went into action. They used some of their own cars to set up command centers to help save lives during this particular disaster. They set up antennas all over the place. to help. Here's a picture of this one Chinese gentleman. He's in his car, but he got his radio equipment. Don't let no one make you think that somebody like this is some kind of nerd. This is a highly advanced individual who thought enough to get himself prepared and learn something that could save his life and his family's life. I'm going to go back to my original presentation now. I just wanted to share that with you so we can get a kind of a glimpse of what's going on. One moment. All right. This is one man's true story. In the winter of 2001, he ran down a flight of three flights of stairs and paused outside of his Redmond office. A few moments earlier in Seattle, at his suburbs, were rocked by a serious earthquake. As he stood in shock with everyone else, he watched as many desperately try to make cell phone calls with no luck. He remembered one woman standing on the grass a few yards away, sobbing because she was worried sick about her twin daughters who were in daycare. She wasn't alone. Everyone there was worried about someone. I tried calling family too, getting nothing but an annoying beep, beep, beep. Nobody's phones worked, although it wasn't because the tower in the area was significantly damaged. Even though the towers weathered the quake well, they were simply overloaded with traffic. Several thousand people evacuated buildings in the area and immediately attempted to make phone calls, but the cell phone networks couldn't come close to handling that amount of traffic. In other areas, however, cell phone coverage disappeared because of power loss or tower damage. Being caught in a large earthquake was frightening enough on its own, but not being able to determine whether one's family was safe added to the fear and stress. All right. I want y'all to just ponder and think that over for a minute, and I'm gonna let my brother, who's been a mentor and a father to me, say a few words, and who has been a city manager over the city of East St. Louis. So he has a great deal of experience. I would be remiss if I didn't allow my brother and my elder to say a few words. So, Brother Shafiq, if you would like, please jump in at this time.
Well, good brother, and the listening audience. You're doing an exceptional job, my brother, and I want to listen to you because you've been spending a lot of valuable time researching and knowing what you know. But the only advice that I would give to the listening audience is heed the call. This is a very serious time in which we live, both geologically speaking and health-wise. And it's very important that efforts be made to protect your family and your neighborhood and your community, total community, in the event that a disaster occurs. So you continue doing the good work, Brother Paul, and I'm gonna like the rest of the listeners. I want to listen and hear an expert discuss the topic.
Oh yes, sir, absolutely. Thank you, my brother Shafiq. We appreciate your spirit, my brother. I was just reminded by one of my brothers on the air, Uriel Bay, that the ham radio signals are given priority over the cellular frequency. So I want y'all to keep that in mind once we get to that portion to talk about the ham radio in particular. All right. So next slide. I want you to take out, for those who have their pen and pad, we're going to talk about these 3 steps or 3 ultimate questions. Step 1 or question 1, how can you contact anyone if your landline phone, cell phone, and internet connection do not work? These are things you need to think about. Will you be able to talk with family and friends after a serious emergency or disaster? That's number 2. Number 3, do you have a communication section in your emergency plan? And if you do, have you tested it out? Because what good is a plan if you're not able to test your plan out? All right. Next slide. Now, and you're going to get a template, a document tonight that's going to have these next questions that I've posted that you see on your screen here. The first question that must be asked is, who are you? All right? What I mean by who are you, not that, hey, I'm a black person, or hey, I'm a citizen, or whatever you want to call yourself, but who are you in the context of emergency communication is, are you responsible, or is the who you, someone who's responsible for your family's safety? Do you have a feeling of responsibility to take care of your friends or neighbors? Do you need to take care of a group of people? Who you work for? Think about who you are in the context of various roles that you have in life. These answers to that who are you will take us to the next question. With whom do you need to communicate with if a crisis occurs? Go back to question number 1. Do you need to reach family members close by? Maybe you have a very close friend in the next state. Maybe you need to help take care of neighbors down the block or across the valley. Or maybe you're a part of an organized, loosely or tightly knitted group of prepared-minded people and friends, classmates, or people that you've taken particular training with. These are questions that we need to ponder. Number 3, are they able to hear you and communicate back with you? And once again, these questions will be on the sheet that I'll provide for you tonight. So you'll be able to take it and begin creating your own plan with this document or template. This may seem like another dumb question, but it is critical. Let's assume you set up a fancy radio station that can reach your parents' neighboring state. Say your parents are in another state or whatnot. Hold on one second. Say my meeting is full. If they don't have a radio which they can hear you, then you don't have a useful solution. They need to be able to respond to you. You have a minimally equipped and trained. You have to train some people. So this can't just be, okay, I'm just going to train me. Like me, I can't just train me if I don't have a means to talk to some of you, or someone in a neighboring state. I don't have a means. I don't have a means to communicate with them. But don't worry, we're going to get into some of that. We're going to get into a solution for that. How far do you need to communicate? That's another critical question. I've been a part of some training operations with the amateur radio emergency service, where we've been having tornado drills on the air, on the ham networks, where they give us a series of communication points. And wherever you are, they ask, what are your distance? What kind of radio you're using? What kind of antenna you're using? So that you can determine how far away you can get a clear communication. I just got a notification that it won't allow any more people to get into the webinar. We have about 26 people, so forgive me for that. I don't know why it's doing that, but this is being recorded, so it will be provided to everyone. All right. Number 5, how often will you need to communicate? Do you need to talk with someone more than once a day? During which time of day do you need to speak? Is there a particular time that works best? Do you have to consider different time zones? So you got to think about the time zone. Do you need to be mobile? Do you expect to be staying at home? Do you expect to have your car, your truck, or SUV? I know this is a lot to think about, brother and sister, but guess what? Would you rather take the time to ponder over these things and write these things down and put these in your emergency plan to save your life than to be, there's many people after a disaster, they talk about if I would have only done this, if I would have only, but now it's too late. The time to be prepared for a disaster is not during a disaster. I want you to think that over. The time to prepare for the disaster is not during the disaster. Number 7, will you need to transmit data? In some scenarios, emergency radio teams are prepared to transmit lists of supplies and needed medical equipment. Here in St. Louis, St. Louis region, we had some floods recently. And they were calling the radio operators to go to the shelters and report. So they immediately, these white folks set up communication networks. They call them nets. So they practice every week. Every week they're practicing. I want us to do the same thing. Part of this, what we're doing is so that we can begin to develop our communications network across the country, brothers and sisters, so that when something happens, we're not scrambling to get prepared. I fell victim to that too. Years ago, we had a blackout in St. Louis. There was a blackout on the coldest day of the year, and there was a blackout on the hottest day of the year. And during that time, I wasn't totally prepared. So I had to run out, for miles. I had to go all the way from St. Louis to a place called Wentzville. Wentzville is maybe 30 miles out just to find water. There was no Walmart that had water. All the shelves were cleaned out. And you can't imagine what people would do when they're trying to feed their babies. But just a small-scale communication system in place to help us know where the water is and where the water isn't, where people are trapped, where people are not trapped. If there's a gas leak underground, because during earthquakes, guess what? Those gas mains rupture. So if a gas main ruptures and you have to evacuate your home, just a simple communication over the radio waves will let me or you know not to go in this particular area. I see a question in the chat box. Brother Paul, can you use your radio if the power goes out? Yes, because for the most part, a handheld radio has its own battery. And I would encourage anyone who has walkie-talkies or hand radios, and we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons of the different radios, I would implore you to have an extra battery or two. And our brother Dawood is going to say a few words to us tonight also on how to create a simple battery backup system. All right, and that is number 9. It takes us to number 9. Do you have or number 8, will you have a power supply? What kind of power will you need needs to be taken into consideration. Unless you're using smoke signals, you will need a power source to run your communication device, depending on each device's power consumption and how often you use it. So all these things is things that we need to be mindful of. Number 9, do you have the skills and equipment that you need? Unfortunately, some of us overlooked it. So we're going to get into what some of that equipment looks like. All right, next slide. All right, here we go. Now we're going to get to the real nitty-gritty good part. We're going to talk about, I want you to write on your paper a calling clock plan. This is the first type of plan that we're going to get into. Everyone needs what's called a calling clock plan. Now, there are different methods to setting up your family communication. We're going to talk about maybe 3 or 4 of them. All right, this first one being the calling clock plan. All right, 1 second. We'll click on that. And there's a template that I'm going to give you. Here's that template. It has all those questions that we ask, and you can write in those spaces. But right here is the actual personal emergency communications plan, a simple Word document that you can fill out. So you want to have a plan A, plan B, and plan C. Now let's go over this. Let's see. Plan A, you see the method. There's a drop-down button right here. So in plan A, you get to choose what that method is. Now, you would take this plan, and every member of your household should keep a copy of this plan on them at all times. Your children, when your children go to school, depending on how old they are, they should have a copy of this plan. Or, just say they're little babies, give that plan to the daycare, the person who's over the daycare, all right, so that y'all plans match. So plan A might be the cell phone call. Let's choose cell phone call. We're going to put that in the box. That's in the list of drop-downs. Who they're going to call on the cell phone? Who's the first person they're going to call on the cell phone? When? If you look in the box on when, there's another drop-down And this drop down says every hour. Or you're going to choose, do you want your child or your loved one to try on the cell phone every hour, every even hour, or every odd hour? So that's something that you have to determine, all right? How often is another drop down. Do you want them to communicate every 5 minutes past the hour, 10 minutes past the hour, 15 minutes past the hour, or 10 or 15 minutes before the hour? So there's a drop down for that. So this template will help make it easy for you. Okay, Sister Lonja says, is there a phone app that will store this type of information? There may be, I'm not sure, but if there isn't, we could look into creating something like that, because I haven't seen one. Okay, cool. All right. So also under here, it has phone number, channel, or frequency. If it's a cell phone, of course, you would put the phone number there. If it's a channel, say you're using walkie-talkie, then you would put whatever channel that is in this particular place. If you're using ham radio, then you will use the frequency. So you put the frequency in there, you can add some notes. And then plan B, let's say plan A was a cell phone. In every disaster, the cell phones don't go out. But if it does, and your plan A don't work, then guess what? We're going to switch to plan B. So under plan B, you might be the internet. It might be a CB. You might be a CB, which stands for Citizens Band. Hold on, we have another question. Oh, yeah. Brother said, nice plan. Need that. Definitely need to print it out. Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to make it available, Brother Uriel Bay. I'll make it available to everybody tonight. So, and so on and so forth. How many hours, how often, what channel or frequency, and any note. So you can have a plan A, B, C, and then you can even add a D. So I hope this particular plan, and you use what works for you. If this doesn't work for you, which I highly doubt it, that it won't work for you, but if this doesn't work for you, there are other ways to look at this as well. So let me close this. We're going to move to our next plan. It's the Rule of Threes plan. Has anybody heard of the Rule of Threes plan? I'll pull this document up. One moment. There we go. We'll put that on the screen. The Rule of Threes. What is the Rule of Threes? The Rule of Threes is every 3 hours, you turn your communication device on for 3 minutes on channel 3. If it's a walkie-talkie, it will be on channel 3. So if you look at the screen, you'll see the clock. You see this little clock. You start from 12 a.m. So everything is on a 12 a.m. Start from 12 a.m. So 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. is your first 3 hours. So no matter what time of day the disaster occurs, if you are clear with your family and friends that we're going to use the 3-3-3 method, then you would start at 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock. So at 3 o'clock, we're turning our radios on for 3 minutes on channel 3. Now, if you don't have a walkie-talkie, your channel 3 could be your ham radio frequency, okay? So you're gonna have to get more than just your cell phone, brothers and sisters, to make this. Because cell phone, a lot of times, is the first thing to go out. The first, because everybody's trying to call out. All right. So that is the 3-3-3 method. All right. Then you have, and this is a wallet size. I'm going to also make this available where you can cut it out and laminate it and keep it in your wallet. So we got a lot of thinking to do. Then you have the 3-2-1 method, where you turn every 3 hours for 2 minutes. I forget what the one represents. channel 3 for 2 minutes. The 3 represents channel 3, or whatever your channel 3 is, for 2 minutes. Let's see, channel 3 for 2 minutes every hour. It's channel 3 for 2 minutes every hour. So every hour, you're turning your communication device on for 2 minutes on channel 3, whatever channel 3 is to you. All right? So that's that method. The next method we have is called the PACE method. A lot of people in the communications world, you have what's called the PACE method. The PACE method stands for primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency. I'll give you some examples of that. Young man named Michael, age 13. He's the contact. You want him to be the contact. He sends a text. Text message is his primary means of communication. The phone call is the alternate means of communication. The email to Gmail account is the contingency. And the emergency, if all else fails, hold on, depending on the circumstances, either drive to the school for face-to-face communication or leave a note at home. Everybody get that? I'm going to give you a moment to ponder over that while I look at a couple questions that we have in the box. Okay. Yes. Salima says, however, you can still send a text message as the signal may pick up at a later time and your emergency message will go through. And there's no app available for this. So we need to, Sister Landry, we need to definitely get on this and make an app for this, this strategy, these family communication plans. Scenario number 2, you will contact Alan. The contact is Alan. He's a ham radio contact using the PACE method. Primary form of communication is ham radio. Alternate communication through text message. The contingency is the phone call. And then the emergency is the email. So just depending on what you have to your disposal will determine the method that you need. We've had several people trying to get in. I hate that they can't get in. All right. Also, you have what's called a crisis communications hub. I want everybody to understand that you should have a crisis communication hub. What is a crisis communication hub? A crisis communication hub is a person or someone who lives outside of your immediate area to help ensure they won't be directly affected by the disaster that's affecting you. You don't want your hub to live just down the street or even in the next town. So everyone, when you think about your family communications plan, need to think about who is going to be your crisis communications hub. Someone that, if I'm in St. Louis, I may choose somebody that I know in Nevada. I may choose somebody that I know in Texas. So I want to try to get as far away as possible and just hoping that this person won't be affected by the same disaster that I'm affected by. All right? The communication hub has a couple of different responsibilities. Okay. The first one, first and foremost, they receive messages from scattered family members if they are unable to make contact directly with one another. All right? Number 2, the second function of the communication hub is to conduct research and gather information about the situation. Access to the internet and other resources might be limited or non-existent for those in the thick of the disaster. So we truly have to be in this tactical intelligence mindset. And this is, we really have to look at this like it's an operation. This is how we survive. Moving right along. We must close the loop. This is how we close the loop. By getting familiar with your gear. Whatever communication device that you choose, get familiar with your gear. Don't wait till the disaster happens if you got a ham radio at home. Don't wait till the disaster happens and try to turn the radio on, because it's kind of a complex device. Run mock plans with your families and friends. I'm willing to work with anybody on this call to run a mock plan with you and your family to test out. I can be your communications hub. Pick a day. Pick a time. Once you put your emergency communication plan together on paper, let's give it a run. Because I don't want to see another black man on TV talking about he didn't know what to do. I see a black man on TV, I don't know what disaster it was, but he was crying crocodile tears, said, we didn't know what to do, we didn't have a clue. What are you spending your time doing? Where are you spending your time? Where's the priority of preparedness on your list? It should be first and foremost. I work in safety. And we always say we're going to err on the side of caution. If we're going to err, guess what? We're going to err on the side of caution. And safety is always first. Then after you put your plan in motion, you test your plan, you want to talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what needs to change. I hope this is making sense to everybody. So we're closing the loop. That's what we're going to call this, is closing the loop. Next slide. All right, next slide. We're going to talk about a simple battery backup system. And with that being said, I want to bring Dawood Muhammad in to talk about the battery backup. So I'm going to unmute. I don't see him in the list, but I know he's on the call. So I'm going to unmute him.
Can everybody hear me? Hello? Okay, I can't hear nobody else. Hold on one moment. I'm trying to get my brother in.
Unmuted.
I can hear you.
Okay, Dawood, go right ahead. I want everybody else to mute their phones out by pushing *6, except for Dawood Muhammad. All right, Dawood, go right ahead.
Okay, I am so greatly honored. I wanted to first give a great shout out to our families, to our Christian family, praise the Lord, to our Hebrew family, Shalom, a Muslim community, Assalamu alaikum, and I just want to say hotep to the rest of our family. I am very greatly honored to be able to talk about this, but I'm going to make it brief because I'm thinking in consideration of everybody's time, as well as my own. What you have here posted on the site here, I don't know if everyone can see it, but we have a battery backup system showing about what does it look like for a modest, affordable, I repeat, a modest, affordable, pure sine wave inverter. Now, what is a pure sine wave inverter? A pure sine wave inverter is a inverter that actually models after the same electricity that you use in your home. Now, there are other types of inverters called modified sine wave inverters, but those inverters are not the same as the one we're talking about, which is a pure sine wave inverter. And for the instance of time, we'll talk about that at another time, but we want to specifically target the reasons why we want you to stay with the pure sine wave. Because all of your appliances that you're using, including motors for your pumps, or let's say that you have a suck pump or a water pump, or your refrigerator that has a compressor. These are the proper type of sine wave inverters that would what these systems operate from. And this is the type that we would prefer you to use. But the question is now, is to first, we're going to raise a big question, and that question is, what are you going to do when the lights go out? And what we're going to do is give you an example of some things that you could do to address any major power outages that may occur due to an earthquake or any other man-made or natural disaster. What we want to say is that you can go, and what we want you to do is write down, get a pen and paper or a pencil and paper. And what we're going to do is go over this real quick, so that way you can have a mental idea for which Brother Paul Muhammad was talking about, and that was about how to size up a small solar system or a small, with a small inverter. Right now, if you will look, we recommend that with a budget of $200, you can be able to go and be able to purchase a small inverter. Let's say at AutoZone, you can start there, or you can go to a website called the Inverter Store. Can give you more information on it there. But I repeat that again, theinverterstore.com. Or you can go to our site, solarwindpower.biz. But the pure sine wave, how does that work? Let's say that you have a pure sine wave 12-volt battery. That 12-volt battery, the inverter will go with a 12-volt battery. If you go with a 24-volt inverter, it will go with a 24-volt battery. If you go with a 48-volt inverter, it will go with a 48-volt battery, which would mean you would have a huge collection of batteries, like 8 batteries, or that would be collected together in some kind of pattern of a series parallel wiring to be able to have 48 volts. But what we're going to do is go to the portable one, which is the 12-volt. That's the 12-volt pure sine wave inverter. Now, under the pure sine wave inverter, let's say that we recommend, at least I recommend, that you could at least try to get something, nothing less than 1,000 watts. But if you have to, 750, 800 watts would be fine. But let's start with 1,000 watt pure sine wave inverter. That could run you at a cost around $79. All right, that's at AutoZone. You may find some at 600 watts, 750. Like I say, they still be around in that price range. Depends on where you go. Or you can go online, eBay or something like that, and may be able to really get a good deal. But that one inverter comes with 2 battery cables, and those battery cables comes in handy. But I recommend that you make sure that when you connect your batteries, your inverter to your battery, we recommend that you have someone that knows about batteries, because it has to go a certain way. That means that the red goes to the positive, the black goes to the ground, to the negative on the battery. But now let's really get into the detail about the inverter. The inverter itself, if you have a 800, let's say if you have an 800 watt inverter, or if you really want to do, as we say, we prefer you to have a 1,000 watt inverter. How much would that operate? That's what most people have on their mind. Once you connect the inverter to the battery, then it'll come on. It has a button on there. You hit it, and then on the front of it, I don't know if you can see it, but it has some outlets where you can actually look like a regular outlet that you can plug right into the inverter, just like the outlet that you pretty much see on the walls of your home. You can just plug it right on into the inverter. But let's look at some of the things, the items that you can really use, that you can live comfortable or be able to sustain yourself at a time of a major crisis. Let's start with that there are 2 worlds. One is the AC world, which everything that you see, from the television to the radio that Brother Paul was talking about, to everything that you're thinking about, operates on AC, which is alternate current. But on the inverter that we have here, it will be operating on a DC side of everything, meaning that you can have a DC television, you can have a DC refrigerator, you can have a DC, the computer, anything, there's a whole list of things that operate on the DC side. You can even have a DC heater. But what we're looking at is an inverter, a 1,000-watt inverter, and just look at what you have in your home that you normally use. If you have 10 13-watt light bulbs, those 13-watt light bulbs are the twisty type. We're talking about the fluorescent and fluorescent type of light bulbs, and they use only 13 watts. But it has the luminance. They can vary from a 60 watt to 75 to 100 watt light bulb in terms of the brightness and the luminance that that you could be able to have. But let's say now we're looking at one light bulb is 13 watts. But if you look at that inverter, you got a 1,000-watt inverter. So now what we're going to do is that we're going to start off with 1,000 watts on a piece of paper. And then from here, we're going to start subtracting, and we're going to name some items, and we're going to subtract from that 1,000 watts. All right, starting with the 13-watt light bulbs. Now, that'll be the first item that you'll look at, because we're talking about what you're going to do when the lights go out and how we can keep our family safe out of the dark. Now, just recently, to show you the danger of being in the dark, is that when we just had a couple of incidents where a child walked across the street and a car hit the child when they were late at night. And so there were, there was two of them, matter of fact, one in East St. Louis and one in St. Louis County, and they were hit at night because there wasn't enough light at night, so they were trying to cross the street and a car hit them, and they died. But here we can have bright light, and here's what we can do. Even in third world countries where there's no power, that's where a lot of this danger come in at as well. But now let's count. We got one 13-watt light bulb. But let's say now we're going to take 10 13-watt light bulbs. 10 13-watt light bulbs equals 130 watts. Now we're going to take that 130 watts. We're going to subtract that from 1,000 watts. Now you're looking at 1,000 watts. You're subtracting 130 from that. That should be 870 watts. I believe that's what it should be. Now, if you look at a refrigerator, a 22 cubic foot refrigerator, we could look at that. And that could be at 450 watts. Some are at 600 watts, but we could stay right now, depending on if you have the Energy Star refrigerators, let's look at them being around 475 watts. Subtract that. Now we find out what that is. And now, okay, so we subtract 470. Let's give it, the real new Energy Star refrigerators is vary in size. The 22 cubic foot refrigerators, that there could be, let's say it's 400 watts. That'll make it more easier. So now we subtract that 400 from the 870. That leaves you a balance of 470 watts left over. A 22 inch cubic inch television, excuse me, that will use 150 watts. So now you got a 150 watt television. Now your laptop, you're using number 60 watts on your laptop. Now you subtract that. Now you got 10 light bulbs. You got what is that? That's and believe it or not, that's a lot of light bulbs. You may not even need that much. To be honest with you, we prefer to say, well, let's say if you had 2 light bulbs in the front or at night, and you had 2 light bulbs in the back of your house or your building at night, and so that way that would just be number 4. And then if you use 4 in the house, that'd be 8. You're down to number 2. That saves you a little bit more wattage if you want to do it that way. But now let's look at in the wintertime. Believe it or not, you can actually be able to have heat in the wintertime. If you have the power, if a storm hits and it's in the wintertime, instead of you freezing to death in your home, all you need is the inverter and the battery in the inverter, and you can literally have a transfer switch put between the point of the furnace and the battery and the inverter, and then you will be able to have your heat turned back on. Basically, you just take the wire that's feeding into the furnace and plug it into your inverter, and there you go. You got power to be able to turn your furnace back on. for heat, so you don't have to freeze to death in your home. Now, we do have some other pictures of some more inexpensive type of radiant heat called a wall mount, but it only uses 425 watts. So you could take that 425 and divide that, or excuse me, subtract that from your 1,000 watt inverter. Now, we do have 2,000 watt inverters, 3,000. It can go all the way up to 24,000 watts, even more. You got it can go up to 100,000 watts. But these are pure sine wave inverters that will actually operate anything that you have, and that includes the compressors that you have for your air conditioning units. So in the summertime, if your power grid goes out, all you have to do is plug your window air conditioner into your inverter, and you'll be able to have air in times when it's extremely hot, and you won't have to end up getting sick from the heat, as well as you can freeze to death in the cold weather conditions. So I would recommend, if you can, to do some more research, and that research is that I'm requiring that you go on the website and type in DC appliances and read and study on what is 12-volt DC appliances. And that way you'll be able to know what kind of appliances you can put on there. Even a fan, for example, you can actually plug in a fan will be maybe 15 to 20 watts or 30 watts on a fan. And we're talking about a huge fan, too. And so now we're talking about the plastic type fans, not the old metal type. That might change a little bit in wattage and demand, but we're just giving you a general idea. But at this point right now, remember to go, and your research would be that you can buy these things. You can buy an inverter at AutoZone or any of the automobile parts store. They may vary from 600 watts to 750 watts, or it may be less, but still, you want something that you could be able to plug in using your 12-volt battery. Now, on the battery, it will be a deep cycle battery. It's not going to be a car battery. Remember this, it will be a deep cycle battery, and that's what you are. They call it a marine battery that can be able to, it's different from an automobile battery. It's different because in a way that it won't be able to stay as long, operate as long. Now, what I have here on the batteries that I use, you can go anywhere from 3 to 5 nights before it needs to be recharged. But now, if you're talking about how do we take solar to tie to it to recharge it, well, now you need something else, which is called a solar recharger or solar battery recharger, and they can run about $200 or less for a solar battery recharger, where you can plug your solar panel into it, the 2 wires from the solar panel into it, and you can plug the battery into it, and then you can also plug the inverter into it. And that way you can be able to just go forever, basically go forever. And we have whole houses that are operating. We got battery banks that go up to 13,000 to 26,000 watts hour battery banks. Most homes, on average, only use like 1,000 watts per bedroom. But we are looking at, for emergency cases, smaller systems so that you could be able to survive in case of a natural disaster. Brother, I think that's pretty much for a wrap up for right now. There are other things that we could talk about, but I think that have to be at another time.
Yes, thank you, my brother. Daryl, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. What we would like for you to do, because I was trying to keep up with you on it by typing it, but I couldn't keep up with you on it. Well, if you could put together those formulas and what you said on a little Word document, so we can send it out to all our listening audience and make it available to them so that they can, the deep cycle, the pure sine wave inverter, because we understand there are different types of inverters. Like in my work truck, I have a 750 watt inverter where I run a laptop and maybe charge my phone or whatnot. So just some basic information about that and where they can get the batteries from, where they can get the inverter from. I know you sell the batteries, I believe, and our solar panels. So we want to get that information out to the people ASAP. I think it'd be pretty useful.
Yes, the picture that you have right here is an excellent example of how the wiring goes. I see that right now on that solar voltage controller that you have there with the battery, and then it's running, showing how the solar panels feed into the voltage controller, the solar voltage controller. And what is a voltage controller? What it is basically you can have wind or solar, and the electricity is stored in the batteries. But you don't want to overcharge the battery, because then you have some problems with that. And so that's why we highly recommend a person, an electrician or somebody that knows about electrical professional, to show you how to wire that up. And or once you do that, then you're on your own. We got battery systems that have been hooked up now for the past 10, 15 years before they even think about having to be repurchased.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. All right, so we got y'all getting some good stuff from our brothers. So we'll give our brother a round of applause, or we'll give him a black hand. Thank you, Brother Dawood. We're gonna move right along because what we're gonna do is we're gonna open the whole floor up for questioning after we finish. I don't have a whole bunch more slides, but right now we're gonna go into the pros and cons of some of the different radios that people can purchase. Okay, so let's see. The next slide is radio scanner, police scanner radios. Everybody know what that is? The pros. The pros are you're able to listen to all emergency communication, including police, fire, rescue, military, aircraft, and civilians, etc. A scanner will scan all frequencies in your area and transmit when there's communication. You get about a 30-mile range with a police scanner. Digital scanners are very easy to use, and they use AA batteries. But the con is that you cannot broadcast with it. So it's just a listening device, but hey, it could come in handy. So, as they say, some beat none, right? So next we have the ham radio. The ham radio is my personal favorite. I'll tell you why after we finish the other one. The pros of ham radio is you're able to listen to all communications, including police, fire, rescue.
Hello, am I heard?
Civilian. Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please put your phone on mute. So thank you for coming on, though, my brother.
Yeah, the Wanzer Quince. I was invited by Brother Dawood.
Yes, sir. Thank you, my brother. Please press *6. Or *6. We're going to open up for question after a while, all right? Thank you, my brother. All right. So with the ham, you get a 30-mile range to 200-mile range to around the world in some cases, depending on the type of equipment that you may have. Some of the cons of ham radio is that you have to get a license, of course, to operate a ham radio, but the license to take the test is only $15, and we're going to provide you tonight. If you go on the event page, I've already provided the free gifts to everyone who's come on. One of those free gifts is Ham Radio for Dummies. It has all the questions to the ham radio test. There are only about 35 questions on the ham radio test, but they take the 35 questions from a pool of 400 questions. So some ham radios have proprietary batteries that can be difficult to recharge or replace in an emergency. Some require programming, but it's really not as difficult as they say it is. Myself, I'm a ham operator. I have my ham license. Also, my brother Uriel Bay, he has his license as well. So every blue moon, we'll see if we can reach each other through the repeaters. And Dawood has a ham radio, and there's some others on the call that has ham radios also. So the next radio you have is the CB radio. Everybody knows what a CB radio is. The pros, they're very inexpensive. You can find them for $100 or less. Easy to use. They use AA batteries. All right, some of the cons of a CB radio is you're limited to like a 2-mile range. But I've heard that some people have gotten a longer distance off of CB radio. You can only communicate with other CB users. Relying on others to be using a CB radio device within a 2-mile radius. most CB communication is done from vehicle to vehicle, so handheld communication options may be limited during emergencies. You cannot hear EMS, police, fire, and rescue communication. So those are some of the cons for CB radio. Walkie-talkies, also known as FRS or GMRS. Some of the pros, they're very easy to use, inexpensive. You can find them for $110 or less. You can find them at Walmart. Everybody knows about the walkie-talkies. The cons are, licenses are required for the GMRS walkie-talkie. Some walkie-talkies have proprietary batteries that can be difficult to recharge or replace in an emergency. You must have at least 2 walkie-talkies. You're limited to a 2-mile range. You cannot hear EMS, police, fire, rescue, and communication. All right? So let's see, what else we got? I hope I'm not going too fast, but I want to get to the question. You have what's called a marine radio. For those of you who don't know what a marine radio is, it's very useful if you're on or near water to hear all marine communication. Now, ham radio can also communicate, depending on the type of radio you have, with these other radios, if you know what frequency they operate on. You can get also emergency and weather alerts. The cons to having a marine radio is not relevant away from water. Some marine radios have proprietary batteries that can be difficult to recharge or replace in an emergency. They're limited to a 3-mile range. You cannot hear EMS, police, fire, and rescue communication. Those are some of the cons of marine radio. A weather radio. You can pick up a weather radio at Radio Shack. Some of the pros is they're inexpensive. You can find one for $60 or less. A crank or solar charging range of about 40 plus miles. So you can basically listen to the radio. Also, but ham radio, guess what? With a ham radio, you can listen in on the national weather frequency on the ham radio. My wife and I do it all the time. When it's raining and they're talking about severe weather, we turn our ham radios on the weather frequency. Some of the cons of this particular weather radio, you can only listen to the National Weather Service and radio broadcast. You cannot transmit, however. Most weather radios have proprietary batteries that can be difficult to recharge or replace in an emergency. You cannot hear EMS, police, fire, rescue, communication. That's your weather radio. Next up, you have the satellite phone. Now, some people say, I'll just get a satellite phone. Well, guess what? You can make and receive phone calls anywhere with a satellite phone, but satellite phones can cost you about $1,700 or less for a phone plus the monthly subscription plan of $60+ a month. You cannot hear EMS, police, fire, and rescue communication. The limited battery life is about 3.5 hours. Satellite phones have proprietary batteries that can be difficult to recharge or replace in an emergency. They have a lot of dead zone coverage. All right? So those are the pros and cons of satellite phones. In fact, I don't know if I know anybody with a satellite phone. All right. So ham radio, to me, is the best solution to your emergency communication. Or Sister Giselle said she had one. Sister Giselle is all the way in Bermuda, and she has a satellite radio. We'd be interested to hear your experience with the satellite, a satellite phone or the satellite radio. Let's see. The 5 critical concerns and why ham radio is the best solution. Issue number 1, the price. Ham radio is cheap. You can get a ham radio for $30 or as low as $30. Check that out. Also, the reach. Ham radio has an awesome distance. I've personally communicated on ham radio up to about maybe 100 miles. And I was able to get on what's called a 20-meter band one time on a larger high-frequency radio, and I was able to communicate all the way to the UK. So, ham radio has levels. You have your higher frequencies, and you have your ultra-high frequencies, and you have your very high frequencies. So that's a little, something for a different call. For those who get ham radios and decide to take the test, we can get together and do another webinar that's dealing with how to use the ham radio. Because it is some complexities there. But once you get it, you got it. All right? Also, privacy. Ham radio provides a little more privacy than most radios when you're dealing with what's called radio-to-radio communication. Mobility. Handhelds are plentiful in ham radio world. Reliability. Ham radios are very, very durable. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the ham radio communication. I have here a document. A ham radio, the signal from the transmitter has to get to the receiver. So you have a transmitter and a receiver. One radio on this end, the other radio on this end. But radios travel mostly in straight lines. All right? So your average, whatever radio you have, on an average, you're going to get about a mile, mile and a half, maybe 5 miles if you have line of sight communication. If you have a straight line of communication, because what happens is, brothers and sisters, the earth and its curvature causes the radio waves to strike the earth. So that's why you only get some of those distances. You get some radios that say it can transmit for 30 miles. You'll see walkie-talkies in Radio Shack that say it can transmit for 30 miles. Well, guess what? That's 30 miles. If you're way up on a hill and someone's in a straight line down the hill at a 30-mile distance, then you might get that 30 miles. But if you understand the nature of radio frequency traveling at the speed of light, you're only going to get it in a straight line. But these ham radios can also communicate with the space station because this frequency travels in a straight line. If the space station was above your head right now and you had a ham radio, a basic $30 ham radio, you can communicate with the space station because it travels in a straight line. All right? Let's move to the next. For the most part, radio waves cannot go around things. Hills, mountains, and even man-made structures like buildings can block signals, depending on also how strong your antenna is. I'm sitting in my office right now, and I have this very long, what they call a 5/8 wave antenna, and I can communicate beyond my walls. I can communicate for about 30 miles outside of my wall because I have a real strong antenna inside of my office. So your equipment makes a difference with your ability to communicate over a long distance. Also, what's called higher frequency, HF frequency, otherwise known as HF frequency. Some ham radios allow you to get on these higher frequencies. These higher frequencies bounce off the ionosphere. Higher frequencies don't go in a straight line. They go in waves. So when you have a higher frequency ham radio, you can actually bounce signals off the ionosphere and transmit signals at a longer distance and even across the world. All right? Let's see. Then you have VHF and UHF, and higher frequencies generally do not bounce off the atmosphere. Okay, they just go in a straight line. All right? But here's the thing about ham radio in particular. Even though you're only going to get maybe a mile, mile and a half, maybe 5 miles, depending on the line of sight communication between one ham operator and another, they have what's called repeaters or relays. Every city has over 70 or more, or towns, 70 or more repeaters or relays. Once you get your ham radio, myself, my brother Bay, my brother Uriel Bay, and others will show you how to hit the repeaters, how to bounce off those repeaters and send your signal 100 miles somewhere, 200 miles somewhere. So they have something called a repeater book. I want everybody to write this down, called a repeater book. There's an app that you can download to your phone called Repeater Book. So anywhere you go, and there's actually a physical book. I do recommend a physical book because if your cell phone is not working, it's not going to pick up those repeaters. But the Repeater Book has all the repeaters, current repeaters in every major city. The Repeater Book only costs maybe about $14, right? So every city that I go to, when I have my ham radio, guess what? I pull out my Repeater Book. And I pull out my repeater book so that I can test the local repeaters and see how reliable the local repeaters are. So that's what the repeater is all about. I won't go any further into that document because it gets a little complex, and you may not understand until you actually get your the radio and test it out. Okay, we're going to go to the next slide. So lastly, just some resources here on the screen that's available. And I'm going to open the floor up for questioning. These resources here are just websites. I belong to the ARRL, which is the Amateur Radio Relay League. Also, STL Aries, which is the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. So I've done some volunteer work with them. The next link is FEMA's link to set up your community emergency response teams. And then you have Radio Oddity, where you can buy some very inexpensive ham radios. So with that being said, we're going to open up the floor for questions. One moment. Let me see if I can unmute everyone.
Muted. Unmuted.
Hello.
Okay, there we go. All participants are unmuted. So this time, we're going to take questions. You can ask me a question, Sister Landra, Brother Dawood, whoever, but let's please be respectful of one another when they're talking, and let's not over-talk one another. So go right ahead, my brother.
How you doing? My name's Lawanza Quince. I am friends of Brother Dawood Muhammad, who invited me to your virtual presentation. Man, you've done an excellent job in just the 20 to 30 minutes I've listened to you. I give you full accolades.
Oh, thank you, my brother. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Listen here, man. Listen here. I guess I gotta talk about myself. I'm a chemist and I'm an engineer. I work for the government. Back in 2014, I got one of those sirens certifications. When you receive notifications of natural disasters and bad weather and things of that nature. Tell me, how can a person connect this? It sounds like emergency communication or such with the sirens program.
What are the sirens connected to, if I may ask?
Okay, you have probably have on a telephone received from the National Bureau of Service. Anyone at any given time can receive a sirens broadcast. It's usually targeted to people in the public sector, government, state, and that sort of thing. And also you may have heard advisories about tornadoes maybe coming in your area or a storm. Have you ever gotten that before on a phone?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay, these are sirens. Many people are trained and have certifications in how to configure a account that they have to receive sirens, broadcast, or notification through their cell phone or their personal phone. And then there are other people who have certifications, and I went through both programs where they can actually send out these notifications and broadcasts that have, it could have a city, a metropolitan, a county, or a statewide scope, okay?
Okay.
Well, I won't go further in asking that question, but what I will try to do, and I'll make my time short in respect to your other members of the audience who want to ask questions, and I'll send you information about sirens, and with the wealth of knowledge and information that you have, I'm certain that you can find some links together there, okay?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, sir. Well, to answer that question, well, the radio frequency is regulated by the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. So in order to tie that in, it would have to be something that they would allow or something that they would do. The best thing that we can do, because usually those sirens is for people outside. It's not, according to FEMA, the sirens are not for people, for you to hear it inside. And when those sirens go off, they don't go off for people inside to hear it.
No. Listen to me.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Sirens are not like the shelter sirens. Sirens is an acronym, okay?
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, siren, sir, is an acronym, and let me give you explain what sirens is. I'm sorry to not and that's been around. Give me a distraction for you.
Peace. This is Uriel Bay. If I may comment on that siren system, what it sounds like basically is a network of communications across multiple platforms. But as far as how that relates to ham radio, ham radio's frequency ranges are meant to be open and not clogged like that, so that when you talk about those notification systems, those notification systems are receiving that information from, a lot of times, from the ham operators on the ground, on the scene, are actually providing that information into that network.
NOAA weather radio, correct?
In any of those notification systems like Siren or any other similar system, they are receiving that information from people on the ground. Those people on the ground are communicating that information in a lot of cases through ham radio. So we're the source of that information in that regards. So that would be my comment on that situation.
I'm sitting. I just sent a text out about that. You can learn more about it. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for elucidating the relationship between the ham radio, who on the ground, like you said, on the ground level, actually capture what notifications that are relayed over to the sirens who broadcast it to local government in the private sector. Thank you, and as well as the private sector and the public sector.
Thank you, my brother, and thank you, brother Uriel. Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, sir. Assalamu alaikum.
Salam, sister. Is that Sister Pamela?
Yes, sir. I'm really enjoying you. You're doing a beautiful job, Brother Paul, and I really appreciate it. Recently, we had a flooding in Louisiana. As a matter of fact, thank God that I wasn't displaced, but a lot of people are displaced in hotels and shelters, everything like that. And if we had more of a plan in place, then people would be more prepared for, perhaps this flood. So you have inspired me to strive to have a meeting, a townhouse meeting, to prepare people to, be better prepared for floods. So that's all I wanted to say to thank you. And yes, sir. Thank you.
You're most welcome, sister. And thank you for your spirit. Hold on one second. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else have any questions?
I have I don't know if I necessarily have a question. This is Brother Daoud Muhammad. First, I extend greetings and peace to everyone that is online. And I know it's been many more that have probably been in already. I want to extend greetings and peace. Assalamu alaikum. The sister had mentioned something about the floods. And really, believe it or not, we have to start looking at the creation of using some barges for which we could be able to place solar panels on the barges along with a few wind turbines. We're in design so that when the power grid goes out, we can be able to still use that power. We also have some issues that we could talk about in regards to pumping stations for sewage and for water. That when you have the floods, a lot of times the pumping stations don't necessarily always work, especially if you
have the power outages on top of it. So it only compounds the problem in terms of sewage backing up in people's homes and things like that. So we have done some very extensive research and study on that, and but we are working on solutions that are something that we can readily at hand do by creating barges in a way that the wind turbines or the wind generators, solar panels could be floating on top of the water and be able to still be a source of for that affected community to be able to have some kind of electrical power, particularly when we look at the hospitals, the nursing homes, things like that, medical situations.
Great. Good idea. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else have a question or comment?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, this is Brother Gerald, and Sister Landra invited me into the call, and I'm really on fire with this. But I wanted to make sure that you were saying that you're going to get some information out to us. Is there a website or something that I need to get on, or to make sure that you get the content that I can be included in getting those questions and that information?
Oh yes, sir. We can make it available on Facebook. Now, when you say information, which information in particular?
Well, you were talking about the questions that you well, the questions there for us, but I think you mentioned something about well, any information that you might be sending out, or if you have just so that I can stay connected.
Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to create a Facebook group. We're going to create a Facebook group and connect everyone to that Facebook group. What I would ask you to do, everyone, to go, I'm going to type this website in. I'm going to say it. It's my website is emergencyradio.creativegeniustech.com. I know it's kind of long. It's a subdomain, but it's emergencyradio.creativegeniustech.com. If you would go to that website, I just put it in the chat box, and opt in. It's an opt-in box. Then I will have your email, and I will put you on the email list to send you any and all information that we have. And everybody that's on this call will get some free gifts. I have some free books that I want to make available. I've already put in the event group or on the event page the books, the link to the books, but I'm also going to put it right here in this chat box where you can download all the books. And if you look also in the chat box, my email, the email is there. Before leaving the webinar, please text your name and email. There's a number to text it to, or you can send an email to the email that's there. So please check that out. Also, this session has been recorded from the start to the finish. So this whole session will be made available. Also, the PowerPoint presentation that I use will be made available to you all as well.
You know, I have a question. I don't know how much time do we have left. I could hold that question for another time if you want to, Brother Paul.
Well, we have a little bit more time. We got about 20 more minutes. So I just want everybody to get a chance to ask the questions. If you're muted and you're trying to say something, you use *6 to unmute yourself.
You used to be trying to help me. Helpful. Sound like you was that with it.
All right. Go right ahead, Raul.
Yeah, you know, I wonder what would you like to see on a local level with our people in our community to do? What is it that that you would like to see done from the local government that you feel that they could either do more of, or is this in terms of addressing this issue that we're trying to do here in our national town hall meeting?
Well, here's what I've observed about the local government. They don't have enough resources to begin with. That's why they have so many. That's why they have so many volunteer organizations that's doing a lot of disaster preparedness. But I really wouldn't ask them to do anything. I would ask the people to take responsibility for their own lives, so we can get out of the mentality of waiting for local government because they have limited resources. So they have limited resources, and even St. Louis County Emergency Management, we went and talked to them during Ferguson. And the guy who's the emergency manager bear witness that they don't have the resources. They don't even have enough radios, you know. So it's on us. I wouldn't ask them to do anything.
And collectively, as a people, then what you recommend is with the efforts that we've been doing already on our part, those who want to do something similar to what we're doing right now, how would they be able to make contact with you or reach you so that we could be able to expand this nationwide?
Well, the first thing that I would compel us to do is to study the ham radio books that I made available, and first and foremost, get your ham radio license, get a ham radio, get yourself a ham radio, and let's get started setting up our communication system using this tool that's available to us, and start preparing your family for disaster preparedness as well as communication. Every household who is conscious and wide awake to have a disaster plan. I keep seeing some of our so-called leaders, they just leading people to more protest. We don't need more protest. We need people to start thinking critically. We need people to start thinking about their survival, start thinking about their livelihood, saving themselves first. So that same person you calling an enemy that we fighting, so-called fighting against and throwing rocks at and protesting against, he's going to be the same one we're going to go to with our hand out when disaster strikes. Well, I compel us to take responsibility for our lives and our families' lives, but it's on us at the end of the day. So get your ham license. Get your ham license.
You know, I'd like to make mention that one of the importance of also people to realize that when we have a natural disaster, that the mode of transportation system that they will presently be using, let's say in most cases some people are 35 miles away from their home. They may be 25 miles away from their home. They may have to walk that distance back to their location just to see if their families are still there. That's why it's so important that what you mentioned earlier is to have a plan, backup plan, plan B, A, B, C plan to be able to say, look, family, if this kind of condition occur, we're going to all meet. If we have to walk, here's where we're going to designate as a place for us to meet at. And, you know, these type of things, but with what this shortwave radio or ham radio offers is that we could be able to instantly communicate when all else has failed. These type of radio systems will be able to allow for us to be able to communicate effectively and without paying a monthly bill or anything for it too. And you're talking about going you can go on eBay and matter of fact, there's some real nice price. I think you can get a nice handheld ham radio for like what, $35, $40 or something like that.
Oh yeah, $30 at the least.
And you can get two of them, one for yourself and one for your wife, or one for yourself or one for your children. Have one left at the home, one left in the car. That way that you always be able to have a system of a means of communications.
That's right. Right. All right. Anybody else? Anybody else out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask one more question. Hello. This is Lawanza Twins, David Muhammad's friend.
Oh, yes, sir. Go ahead.
Listen here, brother.
Yeah, brother Otep, brother Chuck Moses. It's a great honor to have you here.
Yeah, that's my Kemetic name is Tutmosis. You know, after the Pharaoh Tutmosis III, he was the one who expanded the Egyptian territory all into the Middle East and such.
Yeah.
But anyway, you know, we have the honor that I answer this. This question I want to ask: what's the name of the brother who did his presentation this evening?
Brother Paul Muhammad. Brother Paul Muhammad.
Okay, Brother Paul Muhammad, peace be unto you and the ham radio listening family. Question I want to ask you. Listen, I'm asking this question because I'm a software engineer and I deal with software development for the state all the time. Just like you have a physical handheld ham device, can you also have a virtual one on a computer?
Yeah. But you still there, my brother?
Yeah, I'm still here.
It's my brother Uriel. There's a application. Once you get your ham radio license, it's called EchoLink.
Right.
It's called EchoLink. You want to tell them some more about the EchoLink, brother Uriel?
Yeah. So peace again. So basically, that method of communication that you're referring to via app, that's you can use on your cell phone. That already exists. And as Brother Paul Muhammad stated, it's called EchoLink. But in order to use EchoLink, you have to have your ham radio license. So there are many strides in ham radio technology that led to such things as cell phones and the internet and things like that, are all the offsprings of radio communications. Because that's how wireless communication occurs. It's through radio.
Well, you know something? I'm glad to know about that.
Right.
I wonder, is it possible in the future, I'm sending you an email with my phone number and contact, my contact information. And so I build applications for the state, and I have looked at some of these apps that go on the phone. I hope that it's possible in the future that maybe we can work together on some projects in that regard.
Last one more time, my brother.
I know. Did you hear what I said? There seems to be a lot of negative feedback.
Mutual cooperation, towards making sure that we as communities are better prepared in disaster situations. Absolutely, we all need to work together, individually, family-wise, community, as far as agencies. We definitely need to do that. I agree.
So, well, the reason why I'm saying is, again, what I'm saying is that I'm an IT professional, and I build software applications with the state-of-the-art programming and database technology, and I think that I would be glad to lend technical support in the IT area to potentially putting together some projects with you guys.
Wonderful. Well, we definitely gonna connect. We're gonna definitely connect with you, myself, Brother Uriel, Brother Daoud, and others. We're gonna put something real powerful together. I think this is the start of it right here. Put our heads together and save some lives, man, and add some innovation to it as well. So stay tuned. I think the next webinar we're gonna do is gonna be dealing with disaster preparedness as a whole, and we'll put our heads together and come up with presenters on that, and we'll put another little webinar just like this. We only got 10 minutes left, brothers. So any last questions? Give us one or two more questions, and then we're gonna get out of here.
If no one else has anything to say, I could kind of continue on, if that'll be fine.
Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Listen here. I used to work as an analytical chemist, and in the work that I did, of course, I had to get certified in training in disaster relief, dealing like it has WAPR and hazmat, dealing with potential of chemical spills or gases and things of that nature. I know that ham radio emergency system probably will be a good medium by which to talk about these type of things. So let me tell you something. It is my belief that there could be man-made disasters that rise to the FEMA level in specific communities, thereby creating the need for awareness like you have been so generously broadcasting to the family. And we need to have this far-reaching medium to direct attention for the need of awareness in select communities, because I've worked in the academia and in government, and I can tell you it's going to come to pass where there will be disasters, man-made ones, that are going to be directed at specific communities, like what they say in the King Arthur program. I'm sure you may have heard of that before.
Yes, sir.
So, you know, I thought that I would raise that, you know, that question.
That's the question.
Moses, we're gonna follow back up on that. Brother Paul, you're gonna be able to deal with the rest of this. Go right ahead. Is there anybody else got questions or anything else?
I think that's it. So I think in closing, I thank everyone who attended. Please check out some of the links that we provided. Also, my sister Sandra has a great book that I designed a book cover for her great book about disaster preparedness. And she's provided the link within the chat box. And please utilize these resources to help save you and your family's lives. I greet you as I came before you with the greeting words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum. Y'all have a great night.
Wa alaikum salam, sir.
Wa alaikum assalam.